What's going on? You are tapped into the Questions Hip Hop Podcast. My name is Sean Kantrowitz. I'm your host. Every week on the show, I'm exploring deep dives, conversations, thought exercises, debates, and explorations all surrounding hip hop music, culture, its participants, and its biggest fans. And this episode is a very special episode because this is episode number 200 of the podcast. 200 episodes. I certainly did not ever anticipate that I'd be doing this for this long, but I'm really happy to be here. It's been an incredible ride. This is not the final episode. I don't ever want to sound like I'm getting sentimental in a way that feels like maybe this is, the last hurrah. There might be a last hurrah coming at some point, but this is not what that announcement is. It has not crossed my mind yet. So I thought what would be fun for all the viewers and the listeners and people who have been tapped in with the show since its start, pre it even being a show, to maybe some of the people who have just recently caught on, I wanted to highlight the 12, that's right, 12 most important moments in the history of the Questions podcast. Now, before I do that, let me be clear. Every episode was special, and so I don't want to offend anybody or anybody's favorite picks for not putting them here in this list. But these are, from my perspective, the most important milestone moments in the history of the show. So without further ado, let's get into my first pick for the top moments in Questions Hip Hop history. Moment number one is episode number one with Mad Skillz. So to give a little background context for those who may not know, the question started as a live, in-person event in about 2017, maybe 2018. We were doing it here in Los Angeles. The original idea for this sprung from myself, DJ Spider, and DJ Steve Wonder. And we wanted to throw live events that would be fun, cool versions of what a trivia night could be, incorporating screens and a DJ setup. And we started doing them in Los Angeles in Highland Park at a spot called Blind Barber. We did one show prior to that was really chaotic and crazy in Hollywood proper. And it was a great learning experience, but it was sort of madness. So anyway, we started doing it as a live event, began building an audience, and it really caught on and went well. And we had our first offer to do the show out of state in New York, and it was in late March of 2020. And of course, the COVID-19 quarantine and pandemic happened. We didn't know what was going to happen with the future of anything, let alone the future of the show. And so we decided to start doing the questions live on Instagram Live. And rather than doing a big, trivia game that everyone could play along with in person, we would do it with a single guest and have them play trivia, answer questions, and also take questions from what was actually a captive audience because everybody was home and unable to do anything else but kind of watch Instagram Live. So episode number one was the first episode of 5 episodes that we did in a single week. The first episode was with Mad Skillz.
I don't even have to look at the screen because I know people are already telling me the answer. I had that album. I know that album. I would know that album in my sleep. That is none other than Pete Rock and CL Smooth's Mecca and the Soul Brothers.
For Pete's sake, I'm breaking up, wait, I played and navigate the tunes I make. I fit like a slipper, so catch the big one.
Mad Skillz had come to one of our live events in Los Angeles that I just talked about at Blind Barber, and we had struck up a friendship, and even we're talking about some collaborations super early on before 2020 came to pass. So looking back at the first episode with Mad Skillz, it's kind of cringy to me in some ways, and it's kind of very, moving and important to me in other ways. I guess the positive side of it is that we instantly knew that we had tapped into something that was pretty cool, that maybe had legs. It was really entertaining. Skillz is a great person to just talk hip hop with, just on the phone or in person, let alone having him on a broadcast. And this kind of would foreshadow some future collaborations that would happen way later. But it was a really cool moment to kick things off with Mad Skillz. And what a great just cosign. You know, Skillz is such a legend and has such a deep history in hip hop and in the industry that to have him be our first guest was incredible. Now, what makes me cringe about the first episode is that I didn't know what the hell I was doing. We didn't know what the hell we were doing. Instagram Live was not necessarily set up at that time, or even still, to be doing the type of show production that we really wanted to do. And technically speaking, it was kind of wacky. I had an iPad in front of my iPhone, and I would flip the camera and that would show the question that I made in a program. So we had like on-screen graphics. Not the best technical moment. I would also say that I was still figuring out, and in many respects, I'm still continuing to learn and figure out how to dial in on the best version of hosting and interacting. But looking at the early episodes, I really think that I've grown a lot and the show has progressed a lot. It was definitely different for me from doing a live event where you're entertaining a room of people to simultaneously having a one-on-one conversation with someone and making it a good, entertaining interview, while also simultaneously understanding that you have a way bigger audience watching than what could fit into a speakeasy on Highland Park, right? So episode 1, it has its charm. It's amazing. I'm really happy that it exists because there were 199 episodes that would follow after it. And it bears, noting that in that first week, we did 5 episodes in 1 week, 5 nights in a row. This was an incredibly unsustainable thing to do, and I'm glad that I didn't stick to that schedule, but it was very ambitious. And in that first week, I also want to give a shout out to everybody else who appeared on the show: Open Mike Eagle, Merce, Jensen Karp, and J.E. Super dope way to just launch this thing. And, the way you start is super important. And we started the questions in a really, really dope and exciting way. All right, pick number 2 is episode number 31 with the legendary DJ, producer, A&R, and hip-hop personality, DJ Mr. C, rest in peace. This was, about 30 episodes later from our last pick, and it was we were finding a groove. And getting C was a really, really big get. His history with so many classic hip hop records, from Master Ace to Notorious B.I.G., Big Daddy Kane, it was crazy. It was out of control. This actually came on the heels of us doing an episode with Master Ace. Master Ace and Mr. C, of course, very close friends, family. After doing the episode with Master Ace, Mr. C was watching, and he messaged me and said, "Hey, I'd love to do this. If you're down, I'm down." And we wound up texting, and Mr. C is like a legend to me. You know the name if you are a hip hop head, particularly if you were tapped into East Coast radio, New York radio, and the classic records that he's involved in. And we wound up doing, actually, not only did we do an episode with Mr. C, but we made it an all Biggie themed episode, because we wound up publishing it around the time of, I want to say, Biggie's birthday. And it was great. Crazy stories. And Mr. C also, we extended it. Okay, because here's the thing. In the early days of Instagram, you were cut off at an hour. So if your live stream went over 60 minutes, it would just cut it off. And so that happened because we were talking so much. But C hopped back on and then proceeded to show so many cool parts of his home, his collectible collection.
This is one of my possessions. I'll show you something else I got. Hold on.
If you're just joining us, we're doing show and tell with Mr. C here.
How many of y'all don't got this? This is the All Together cereal. This is all of the Kellogg cereals mixed into one.
What? Where does one get this?
Kellogg's was selling it as a limited edition. So you got Kellogg's Corn Flakes, Kellogg's Fruit Loops, Kellogg's Frosted Flakes, Frosted Mini Wheats, Rice Krispies, and Raisin Bran, all mixed into one. It's all one cereal.
Did you ever eat it? Like, do you have another one?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I told Master Ace I was gonna buy this. He was like, if you ever eat it, I'm gonna kill you. The sugar level on here is probably 1,000.
I'm sensing a theme here. I'm sensing hip hop memorabilia.
I got different kind of trinkets in here. I have.
If it's another box of cereal, we got to talk about why you have so much cereal. Oh, Master Ace, shout out. Was that the 45 box set?
Yeah. So and this is a 45 box set, and this is actually a puzzle. This is actually a Master Ace Incorporated sitting on chrome puzzle. Never opened.
That Delicious put that out, I believe. I have I'm looking. I have the Bizarre Ride to the Far Side. Hold on, now I'm gonna try to hang with C here, but there's no way.
Oh, hey, we showing off trinkets tonight. DJ,
I've never opened this, but this is the Bizarre Ride to the Far Side. It's a box set of 7 inches, and it's a music box and a puzzle as well, or a poster and a puzzle.
And then I got this. This just came out last year. This is the Ready to Die 25th anniversary edition.
Woo!
And this is all of Biggie, the whole Ready to Die on 45.
It was amazing, and I kept in touch with C, not a lot, but we would speak a couple more times over the years after he did the episode, and he was always super supportive. He was always trying to connect and help, and he really believed in the questions. And yeah, it is a very, very important episode to me, and it's a great episode. And it is an important episode because it was the first guest who we've had on the show who is no longer here with us. And unfortunately, there's one other instance of someone who is on the show. Granddaddy IU was also a guest. When you kind of came out, that was your thing. You're a big part of your brand was the way you presented yourself clothing wise.
Yeah.
What was sort of the genesis for that for you? Like, what made you decide? And did you ever at a point feel like, I wish I hadn't done this because now I have to wear suits all the time?
Yeah, no question. But that came from my man, Easy Rick, God bless his dad. He was older than me. That was like my OG at the time. He was from like the 70s. He was born in the 70s. So, you know, them niggas, they wear suits and all that shit. And hard bottom shoes and the motherfucking brim hats and all that shit. So when I got the record deal, he was pretty much like, yo, man, you can't be coming out looking like all the rest of these motherfuckers. So he wanted me to dress like he be dressing and shit. So I just did it, you know what I'm saying, as, you know, whatever. But I didn't realize that the record company was going to try to make that my image overall.
Right.
And so, yeah, I was like, I couldn't wait to get out after the fucking photo shoots and the rest of that shit, so I could change my clothes.
When you would like rock shows, would you have to wear that as well, or were you wearing regular clothes?
I ain't never wear that shit to no show.
So shout out and rest in peace to Granddaddy IU, and rest in peace and big thank you and salute forever to Mr. C. Appreciate you. Thank you. Pick number 3 in the 12 most important moments in the history of the Questions Hip Hop Podcast. Got to give it up to episode number 50 with special guest Questlove. This was also broadcast on Instagram Live. By now, 50 felt like a huge accomplishment and a crazy milestone. And I had wanted to get Questlove on the show. And it just so happened to align that when he was able to do it, happened to be the 50th episode. So it really felt like we were doing something big for a big number 50. Anyone who knows me or who is sort of dialed into the ethos of the Questions knows that the idea for and the aesthetic of the Questions would not exist were it not for OK Player and my extremely formative years posting on those message boards, learning and communicating and building with the community there. And I've had so many people from OK Player on the show, and so many people in my life I've connected with and worked with and met and collaborated with. We are all sort of from the ant farm, as Questlove calls it, that is OK Player. So having Questlove on the show, it really felt like an important moment to me, because not only am I such a big fan of the Roots and all of the work that he's done, but this really felt like it was a show that was born from the lineage of OK Player, and quite frankly, just Questlove's attention to detail, his liner notes, his writings. He would, go on to write many more books. He had written some books before he did this podcast, but it was just amazing. He was a great sport. We had some fun stories and some really intense moments, especially in the final round of the episode. Questlove is going for, let's see how well you remember the 2020 Grammys. Are you ready to go, Questlove?
Hit me.
And they're not multiple choice either. Here we go. This old school group performed their 80s crossover hit single at the ceremony with Aerosmith.
Run DMC.
That is correct. Which hip hop artist had the most nominations in 2020? We'll use hip hop loosely as well.
The country done, the country boy.
What's his name? It's an amalgamation of 3 rap names.
Little Nas X.
That is correct. All right. This album won Best Rap Album.
Oh, God. Who won Best Rap Album this year? I was in the audience. Tyler.
Tyler is correct. All right. This rapper presented the award for Album of the Year.
Not Drake. This rapper. Pass.
All right. Name 3 artists who performed in the tribute to Nipsey Hussle.
John Legend. We the best. Wow. We the best. DJ Khaled.
Correct.
John Legend, DJ Khaled. They also won.
The time is up. Do you have it on the tip of your tongue or no?
Meek Mill was behind me. Meek Mill?
Meek Mill is correct. I will give it to you. Meek Mill was part of the performance.
Woo!
All right. So pick number 4 is episode number 59 with special guest Warren G. And I'm really picking this episode because of this moment right here. We have a question from our Patreon. Mike King asks, in the song Regulate, how were you able to so quickly switch back to freak mode after getting robbed? I don't know if he's joking here or not, but you're talking about you got robbed, and then you said you switched to freak mode. How does that work?
He got to listen to it, after, of course, I'm not just going to get robbed and go back into, doing my thing. You got to bounce back for a second and then get back on the move and rebound. And once I rebound, then that's when we went back on that mission.
So to clarify, this wasn't a seamless, like, this to freak mode. There was a moment of, like, sort of
well, a little time out just to, to figure, we went through some shit. So, that's all what, okay, let's get back to something. Let's, take our mind apart for that.
Yeah. It's like a 3-minute song. So, like, obviously you had to condense it a little bit, but, like, in real life, I get it. I totally get it. I think we addressed that. All right, let's see what else we got. To me, being able to ask that question, and I got to shout out my guy, Mike King, formerly known as Icon the Mike King. I believe he was the one who suggested that I ask this question in the first place. But for me, it was really finding, or solidifying anyway, the fact that this was a show that I wanted to be super reverent to hip hop and its practitioners, but I also wanted it to be funny. And because I like to laugh, I like to play with words. I like to, examine things through a comedic lens, and it was fun. And I wasn't sure how it was going to play out because I didn't know Warren G personally. I obviously knew his music. And again, this is also significant because at this point in the show, there's a part of me that still, every time we're booking a guest and this is happening and we're promoting it and they're coming on Instagram Live, I can't believe that now we're doing these things. I can't believe that we're getting these guests. So on one level, it's like, yo, this is crazy. We got Warren G on the show. And then it's also, I'm going to try to do something maybe a little playful and irreverent with this artist. And it really was a funny response, and it went well. So, you know, this might seem minor in the scope of some of the other things that I said, but it was a great episode. And for me, it just helped embolden my idea that we could play with the tonality of how we talk about these things. And yeah, it's just a really fun moment, and I'm glad that I asked it. Pick number 5 is episode 63. This is with artist and radio personality Headkrack. And this is important because this was the first artist to get a perfect score on the questions classic trivia format that we were doing on Instagram Live at this time. So our final round is our speed round, and it's called Time's Up. So This is how it works. I'm going to present you with 5 questions that you have to answer in 90 seconds. They're not multiple choice, and you will have 90 seconds, but you get to choose the category. And here are your categories for tonight. Make you bling like the Neptune sound, all things DJ Premier, or I'd like to dedicate this song to my DJ. So you get to pick the category of your choosing.
I think the hardest one out of all of those would be I like to dedicate this song to my DJ. So I'll go with that one.
Let's go. Let's do it. Here we go. The Beastie Boys wrote a song about this DJ with 3 MCs and 1 DJ.
Mixmaster Mike.
That is correct. In 2004, this artist scored their first legitimate solo hit with the single Go DJ.
Lil Wayne.
Lil Wayne is correct. On their first 2 albums, Run DMC dedicated 2 songs to Jam Master Jay. Name one of the songs.
Literally called Jam Master Jay, and for bonus, I'll go Jam Master Jammin'.
He is correct. All right, this duo's 1989 album had a DJ dedication cut called Aladdin's on a Rampage.
Low Profile.
That is correct. Which DJ Jazzy Jeff in the Fresh Prince album does the DJ tribute song The Magnificent Jazzy Jeff appear on?
Rock the House.
Ladies and gentlemen, for the first time in questions history, Headkrack, you have gotten all 15 questions correct.
Wow.
Wow.
Mind blown.
You have set records. You have beat Questlove. You have beat Just Blaze. You have beat Kid from Kid and Play. You beat Master Ace, Bun B. Headkrack, how does it feel?
It feels amazing. The same people that you mentioned were the same people I grew up studying. I feel like because I have such an arsenal of like rap magazines, I have mad albums on cassette. In my guest room, my bed sheets are like hip hop album cassettes. I'm a geek about mine. This culture raised me. They were my parents when my parents weren't around. So it's all I had, man. And I love the culture, and you do a great job on the show, bro. Like, this is an amazing setup. I had fun tonight, man.
The format of the show in the early days was 15 questions, 10 of them multiple choice, and then the final 5 in a final round that was extremely intense, open-ended, and was kind of tricky. I think even some of the greatest hip-hop heads and experts, there are a couple, I think that there's something that happens when people come on and are put on the spot. And for that reason, and for the fact that I think I also, over time, was still dialing in on how to make a game that was great and challenging, but also, I'll just say that maybe some of the early episodes, I might have made the questions a little too hard and a little too in the cut. But I met my match, and we were able to get a really great performance out of Headkrack when he scored a perfect score on the questions. So this was like a grand moment. And we had like a leaderboard at one point that sort of showed how everybody was doing and who was in like the 15 perfect club and who was in the 14 and the 13 and so on. We were ranking everybody. But Headkrack was the first perfect score on August 26th of 2020. He would also later be joined. I'll shout out some of the other people who made it to the Perfect Score Club. Mr. Len from Company Flow, DJ Skillz, watcher and supporter of the show, Dom Synchro, and Zilla Rocca from Call Out Culture, Wrecking Crew. These are all people who got perfect scores. You can go ahead and show your perfect scorecard at the movies and get 10% off, guys. No, there's absolutely no prize that comes with doing this. In fact, Questlove even put it best once when he said,
I did a really, really fun game show today. D-Nice, you got to do this game show. You are hip-hop history. Yo, D-Nice, meet Sean Dammit. Sean Dammit, meet D-Nice. He has to be on your show. It's like the hip-hop version of Who Wants to Be a Millionaire with no money.
Pick number 6 has got to be episode number 118. This was the very first time that we did Making Illmatic on the show. So Midas the Beast, good friend of mine, have known him for, at this point, probably close to 2 decades. Wow, 20 years, crazy. Anyway, he had been doing a program on his Twitch that was Making Illmatic. Basically, he came to me and he said, I have this idea. I've tested it out a couple times. I think it's pretty cool if we take an album and try to cut it down to its 10 best songs. And I was like, there were a few reasons. One, I love the idea and I was super down to do it. 2, we were no longer doing these on Instagram Live at this point. So we were a little bit more open to how we could do the format of these shows. And I also was beginning to entertain the idea that I maybe didn't want to just rely on doing trivia every single week. At this point, I just felt like it had run its course in some respects, and I was still happy to do it, but I didn't want to just be locked into doing it. So we took the Making Illmatic format, fine-tuned it a little bit, and we did our very first one with another good friend of ours, producer and super dope hip-hop head, Optics, and we did Jay-Z's The Black Album as our very first one. And this is important because I would say this has become an extremely popular branch of the show. I think that the original format was super potent when it was live streamed basically on Instagram. And we were all in that moment of watching things as they happened. Obviously, the world is not in that space anymore. We are not all locked in as we once were. But this was a good format, and I think it's just gotten better and better. We've done, at this point, I'll give you a little breakdown here. We've done 35 episodes of Making Illmatic in the show's 200-episode history. 7 episodes of Can't Knock the Shuffle. We'll get into that later. 127 of the classic trivia format, and 8 live in-person episodes, like live recordings. And we'll get more into that later. But my appreciation for Making Illmatic has been great because it's super fun. It's something that I don't have to craft on my own, which I'm happy to work alone, but man, it's fun to do shit with your friends. And it's been great to see the positive response that this format has gotten. So got to give it up to the first time we did it, and we're going to keep doing it, recording a couple more in the week that I'm recording this. So more Making Illmatics coming soon. Pick number 7 is episode number 131, and it was with a second-time guest. It was with Open Mike Eagle. This was done in 2022, and he was in the promotional cycle of talking about component system with the auto reverse. And the reason why this one is important to me is for 2 reasons. One, it was the first episode that I did in person, face to face with someone. In 2019, late 2019, I bought a Rodecaster Pro for podcasting because I had an idea. I'd been playing with the idea of doing a podcast even before the pandemic. And I was like, you know what? Let me get this piece of gear that will be super easy mobile rig. It will be high quality, and I'll be able to record them wherever I go because I know in 2020, I'm going to be out and about, going places, recording podcasts. And that didn't happen. I did a lot of what would later be redubbed a podcast with what I was doing on Instagram Live, but I did not leave my home for most, if not all, of 2020. So the Rodecaster sat collecting dust So it was dope for me to then finally dust it off, go to Mike Eagle's house and record this episode with him. By this point, the show had converted into a podcast format, and the show still lives on the Stony Island Audio Podcast Network, which is something that Mike created and founded. And he's done some great shows on it. And, shout out to Dad Bod Rap Pod and Super Duty Tough Work and all the other great shows that are under the umbrella of that podcast network. So it was cool to do that. I also got to say, this may have helped lessen my enthusiasm for doing the trivia format because of this moment that he said, which lives in my head rent-free more than I ever thought it would. This is the moment.
It wasn't working. So now these are
all based on Sean's experiences within hip hop. Like, this is all like based on your relationship to hip hop, and you can only assume other people's, and that's fucking fascinating.
Well, you're talking about like the types of questions that
I just mean the whole thing. Like, because you can design something that you think is going to be easy,
right?
But at the end of the day, you are trying to predict what someone else's relationship to music is based on yours,
right? It's tough.
That's fucking fascinating.
And I try to get into the head. Like I have a whole process of trying to determine what pool I'm going to ask Open Mike Eagle.
Mm-hmm. I bet.
But also being aware of my own biases and inherently starting to lean towards the stuff I like anyway.
Yeah.
I'm not going to ask you about something that I don't know about.
Exactly. I don't know. I think that's endlessly fascinating because there's no objectivity in life, and this show is just further proof of that.
I feel dismantled right now.
You should not. You should not. This is just another level for people to listen on.
Yeah, for some reason that kind of shook me to my core. Mike, you changed my life. No, it did make me. I'll say this. I do think that I have and continue to make sure that I'm not framing everything about the questions through my personal lens as much as one can do, because obviously this is all coming out of my brain and this is all coming out of my perspective. But I've taken good care to make sure that I'm being inclusive of all regions and eras and genres and albums and moments that don't just necessarily relate to the shit that is my favorite. But there was a truth to this that he said that kind of got me a little, let me think about this. And I'm still thinking about it. Anyway, thanks, Mike. Episode number 8 of the most important moments in the Questions Hip Hop podcast history has got to be episode number 136, which didn't have a guest. And it wasn't a Making Illmatic, and it wasn't any sort of special format. Why was this episode so special? It was because I had a big announcement that I was sharing with the world. After the live shows, so many live events and so many Instagram lives and podcasts and doing so many other things, I was able to take the questions and hit a real milestone that extended beyond any listening experience and publish a game through the largest publisher in the world. And I was, and still am, extremely proud and grateful to this moment, and grateful to everything that led up to this moment and everyone who played a part in helping to make this happen. And this is kind of an ad, because if you want to purchase this game, if you don't have a copy already, you can hit the link in the episode notes and buy a copy. And, still as great as it ever was. Take some hip hop trivia home with you. You know what I mean? Pick number 9. Speaking of milestones, this was episode number 150, and it was recorded live at the Punchline Philly in Philadelphia as part of the Questions and Confessions tour. This was a string of dates that myself and Mad Skillz, see, I told you he was going to come back. Me and Mad Skillz teamed up to do his podcast, Hip Hop Confessions, and my podcast, The Questions Hip Hop Trivia. And we did a string of dates on the East Coast where we were doing live podcast recordings with a guest on stage while people were playing in the audience. It was a perfect merging, and we did this one in Philly with Freeway and Peedi Crakk. It was an absolute blast, and I honestly cannot wait to do more of these. We had such a great time, and I've done other live episodes in other configurations since, but being there on stage with Skillz and Freeway and Peedi Crakk talking shit, playing trivia, telling stories, learning, laughing. It sounds like I'm doing the text on a movie poster. We learned, we laughed, we hip hop trivia'd.
Obviously, Black Thought, legend, Philly legend, and you have both worked with him.
Most definitely. I think he's one of the most talented lyricists ever.
How and when did you first meet him?
I'm not like, though, I used to, shout out to my man Miles, we went to school together, and shout out to Chaos.
Yeah, shout out Miles Chaos.
They both producers, and Chaos is Miles' big brother, and he used to work with the Roots when I was a young boy. We used to come from school, and we used to go to South Philly, and we used to be in the studio with them there, like a studio in the house. And I just used to be around hanging out and, you know, trying to get game and trying to learn. You know, so shout out to all of them, shout out to my brother Miles, shout out to my brother Chaos.
It's a studio in Philly, in North Philly, Larry Goals. Yeah, that's somewhere that everybody, whenever somebody big from anywhere come to Philly, Mary J. Blige, Method Man, everybody recording at Larry Goals. So that was a big thing, and we started recording there, and that was kind of like their home. They had a Roots room that was crazy. Yeah, but it wasn't no regular room. Like when you first walk in there, it's like a little stage and a stripper pole. Yeah, it's wild. And then the studio's in the back. Like you're in a whole nother world when you go in that joint. Yep. And from going there, we just started building. Well, I started building relationships with people, and I guess as my career started to progress, I got a call. And shout out Rich Nichols, rest his soul.
Yeah, rest in peace, Rich.
Rich called my manager and was like, yo, I got Black Thought here. We about to finish the album. We want you to come down. He got a song called Long Time. Yeah. And he wants you to get on.
Game Theory.
Yeah, and I went there and I was nervous though, because you know, this Black Thought, man. So, you know, and he'll make it easy for you either, because you know, he's not very talkative. Yeah. He'll kick it a little bit, but if he's in the zone, he's smoking, like, so I'm mad nervous. But I wrote the verse there on the spot, and that was my first album. And I'm on 3 Roots albums after that. Like, he just kept calling me and bringing me through. Yeah. No, Black Thought is probably...
It was so fun. It was so great. And I wish that we had recorded video of it. We did, but it didn't come out. But I was so glad that we were able to record the audio for it. And it was just super fun. You should go back and listen to it if you haven't. Pick number 10 is episodes 182 and 183, a two-parter. I was joined by Nicolay from the Foreign Exchange to do a super deep dive on the first Foreign Exchange album, Connected, which was celebrating its 20th anniversary. And it was super dope to do such a deep dive. I think we wound up speaking over the course of 2 days for 6 hours, which was crazy. But man, I think it's one of the deepest and most thorough explorations of Connected, which was, again, harkening back to OK Player, as I mentioned earlier, such a big record for me, obviously for Fonte and for Nicolay. For OK Player, really, if you want to think about it, the world in general, that an album was made like this, worked on remotely. This was like a very new thing at the time, which we get into.
So what we would do, we would use AOL Instant Messenger, which is not too unsimilar from stuff that's being used now, like Facebook Messenger or even so it was like a kind of like a direct link that you had based on a username, and we would send MP3s back and forth because that was about the speed that you had. Would still take a while, but it was certainly not prudent to send high-res files. So what would happen is I would send MP3s to Fonte with the tracks. He would use those to record to, and then he would send me an MP3 sort of rough mix back. And then when it became time to really do the mixes, we resorted to snail mail. Like he would send me CDRs in the mail with acapellas, with WAV file, high-res versions of the acapellas, so that I could put it all together in my computer and do the final mixes.
Jeez.
And that was kind of, you know, this was before Dropbox and WeTransfer, and yet at the same time, at no point was it complicated. Like it just sort of happened.
And this episode was also important to me because it really solidified at this point that I got comfortable with the idea that I don't have to adhere to a specific high concept format. I could do trivia. I could do album explorations with like making Illmatic. I could do Can't Knock the Shuffle, which again, we're going to talk about more in a little bit. If that, anyway, it was cool to really just open it up, and it made me realize I can do whatever I want with this show, which is weird that I wouldn't think that, because this is something that I don't have to report to anybody on this. This is like, something that was built from the ground up. But sometimes I think we can get kind of caught up into our perception or idea of what something is supposed to be. And it was cool that this kind of proved and broke that idea. And it was like, hey, if you have an opportunity to talk to somebody and it doesn't fit into the specific, really dope, if I may say so myself, I think that the ideas and presentations of what we've done on the questions is pretty dope. But this was just a great shining example of being able to understand that anything goes. And Nicolay is great. I am so grateful that not only did he share his time and share the stories with me, but he also gave me never before granted access to stems and files and demos and all these parts of the songs, which our editor, Rob Van Franken, totally killed and put together just an amazing immersive experience. By this point in the show's history, Rob was rocking with us. He was able and has been able to really enrich the experience. And I got to say that while we're here, if you're watching this or listening to this on YouTube, you're not getting the full experience because of YouTube's flagging of third-party content. So listen to the show, or better yet, here's the plug, join the Questions Patreon, where you can hear the full unabridged versions of the episodes, which have so many dope needle drops, so many sound cues and moments that really, really enhance the narrative of whatever it is myself and a guest may be talking about. It is really, really cool. So shout out to YouTube. And I know that that's sort of the current iteration of where the podcast is and where I'm focused on. People love YouTube. I'm down to be here. It's awesome. But just know that you could be hearing and experiencing more on audio platforms, and really, really, because even Spotify has kind of been hating on me and flagging me for some stuff for episodes that are years old now. Really, if you want the real deal, join the Questions Patreon, support this show. $5 a month. You get access to all of those things I just mentioned, bonus episodes that don't live anywhere else, video, photos, essays and articles, and a whole lot more. Hit the link in the notes for the Questions Hip Hop Patreon. This was a pick that turned into pick number 11 for the most important moments in the Questions Hip Hop podcast's history. It's got to be episode number 187 with MC Paul Barman. I did a Can't Knock the Shuffle with him. Can't Knock the Shuffle was actually, so this is where the narrative gets a little confusing. The question started as something that was on Instagram Live, and I sort of counted that as episode 1, the first pick that I mentioned, Mad Skillz. But in late 2020, early 2021, I launched a different podcast called Can't Knock the Shuffle, where I would interview artists and basically ask them questions about songs from their catalog, and the songs were randomly selected by an algorithm. I thought this was a really dope idea. It was something that I had sort of piloted under a different name when I was writing for undergroundhiphop.com. When it got relaunched, shout out to Mike King, shout out to Kathy Iandoli, who was my editor at the time, former guest of the show, and also someone who's pretty damn important in me getting my card game published. Thank you, Kathy. Appreciate you, Kathy. Can't Knock the Shuffle was its own podcast on Stony Island Audio. It was the first podcast before the Questions became a podcast. Is this confusing yet? Anyway, I wound up in my growth and understanding that the questions didn't have to just be one thing. I decided to start doing Can't Knock the Shuffle as a version of episodes under the Questions umbrella. This is so fucking complicated. I'm sorry that I had to do this to you, but I had to get it off my chest. So anyway, doing Can't Knock the Shuffle episodes now, as it makes sense, as I see fit, and getting Paul Barman, who is someone that is he is one of the most interesting people that I've ever had conversations with on recording or otherwise. And he was a fan of the show. I think that he had really gotten put on through some of the other episodes I had done, although now that I think about it, I can't remember how we sort of connected. It might have been, we have a few mutual friends, but anyway, he was down to do it. It took us a while to plan. We, sort of kept batting it back and forth, and to get to talk to him and do the episode was great because he doesn't really do a lot of podcasts or interviews, especially not these days. And I just found it fascinating to peel back and hear the stories about some of these songs and just get his perspective.
We were in a studio called In Your Ear. I think I have the invoice somewhere. And I paid for it with a check. And Doom was like, so is that check gonna bounce? I was like, of course not. We recorded those joints really, really fast. It was fun blowing Doom's mind as a one-take wonder, which I am capable of doing when I'm lucky, but was sort of the result of having demoed it at length and really knowing it.
How did you link with Doom in the first place?
I name dropped. I had the back page of Spin for a couple of months, which was a great gig, and I got to draw and write. When I first heard Hey on Bobbito's radio show, I just kind of couldn't believe it. I was blown away by the way he rhymed, but also I think all self-produced MCs have a certain quality that I'm looking for. He had a sound that was distinct at a time where I wasn't hearing a lot of that quality. Apparently he put that Spin page in his press clippings, but then I asked Paul to connect me with him. That started up a beautiful friendship, and that session was really strange. He pulled a razor out of his mouth and fake threatened me with it on the street, and I had a gallon of water I had bought at a bodega. I used it as a shield. I did not feel like he was going to slice me open. He's like, that's good, you gotta always be prepared.
And it's been really dope to continue that narrative. And I do feel that Paul and I will do something else on the podcast at some point. We talk about it all the time. But this was important because he is somebody who doesn't do a lot of interviews. I really enjoyed and found the conversation to go in places that I couldn't have even anticipated. And again, this was just was not the first Can't Knock the Shuffle that I did as a questions episode, but this was cool. It was cool to really just to feel, again, I guess the theme here is that I felt in a weird way indebted to or imprisoned to a format that I thought up and having to adhere to it. Weird, right? And finally, pick number 12 for the 12 most important moments in the history of the questions hip hop. There's going to be some recency bias here. I'm going to go with episode number 199, the previous last episode, which was with Mathematics from Wu-Tang. This was done live in person at the FYI campus, will.i.am's FYI campus. This was not the first one that I did there. I had done one previously with Brother Ali and D1 when they had some days off in Los Angeles while they were on tour. But this, I think, was the best, my best yet, anyway, integration of how to do a show in a professional, proper studio setup with multiple cameras and also incorporating other elements into the Can't Knock the Shuffle format. I was using the AI in the FYI app to help me pick the songs that Mathematics was going to talk about from his production history with Wu-Tang and Ghostface Killah and his own stuff. It was really, really dope. And I learned a lot. And to be able to talk to somebody who is so connected and deep in the roots with a classic legendary group like Wu-Tang Clan, it was just crazy. And again, there's some recency bias. You always got to feel like your last shit is the best shit. And so I'm still really geeked at how great I think it looks. And you can watch clips of it and you can watch some of it here.
Yeah.
So I have to ask, this year, this was 98? Yeah, 98.
Yeah.
So Wu-Tang is at its apex in terms of just cultural relevance, respect, commercial success, and everything. Most things, I would say, up to that point had been under the architecture of the RZA. The RZA was the guiding force. how nervous are the other producers in the camp, or how inspired are the other producers in the camp at that time, where it's like, okay, there's a Wu-Tang blueprint, and now we're gonna add some other elements. Like, what is that like? Because I'm thinking like I'd be freaking out.
Well, nah. See, what it was, because we all had a close bond, right?
Sure.
And when I first started producing, because I had just started producing in '95. Like,
wow.
When I seen RZA make Ice Cream, that made me want to become a producer.
Got it.
And that's when I went and caught my ASR 10.
Yeah.
Right? So when I used to come to the studio, when I first started making beats, True Masters in the studio.
Mm-hmm.
RZA's in the studio. Fourth Disciples in the studio.
Yeah.
Deck is in the studio. And they all got beats. And their beats is heat.
Yeah.
So it was competition. It was always competition just to make a track, just to make an album. It was always competition. And in the beginning, I got my ass whipped. I ain't gonna front. Just comes to the studio and hearing the heat they playing, I'm like, wait, hold on. But it made me go back and work harder.
And so those are the most significant, important moments to me in the history of the Questions Hip Hop podcast. I want to know what your favorite moments are. If you're watching this on YouTube, leave a comment below and tell me what your favorite episodes or moments were. If you're listening to this elsewhere, you can leave a review wherever you're listening and shout out your favorite episode. I am so grateful and honored and happy to have been on this journey. 200 episodes is crazy, and maybe we'll do 200 more. It's been such a crazy ride. Over 5 years of recording some form of these. And I just got to give a shout out to everybody who has watched, everybody who has listened, everybody who has come to the events, whether it was before the pandemic or afterwards when we were doing live events. I got to give a big shout out to everybody who has helped me carry this and execute it in so many ways. I'm hoping I don't forget people, but shout out and big thank you to Steve Wonder, Steve Sloan, my cousin. Thank you so much. DJ Spider, thank you so much. Double O, Natalie Garcia Mayor, DJ Marquis. Give a big shout out to Blind Barber and Josh, who welcomed us to really grow this thing in his establishment and paid us. Like, it was crazy. Shout out to Be Real. From Cypress Hill for giving us a brief stint where we did a show on Be Real TV. That was amazing and such a good look. Shout out to Inca One. Shout out to DJ Expo for allowing us to do the show at Dre Day in Los Angeles. And Inca has subbed in many times as a DJ for us. Shout out to all the other DJs who have, at one point rocked with us. DJ Mike Taylor, Damone Carter and Nate LeBlanc and Dave Ma from Dad Bod Rap Pod. Thank you for your support. Thank you for bringing me to San Jose to do an event there. It was amazing. Shout out to Mad Skillz. Shout out to Open Mike Eagle. Shout out to the Mad Skillz crew for the Questions and Confessions tour. Shout out to Don Will. I did, another version of fusing the Almanac of Rap Questions tour in New York and Jersey with him. It was amazing. Shout out to Optics. Shout out to Midas the Beast. Shout out to Kathy Andely for being a pivotal part of me publishing my game. Shout out to Portia Burke, who was the editor of the Questions Hip Hop Trivia card game. Shout out to Robert Ginsler, my agent, for helping to make that happen. Shout out to Nope, who helped book so many episodes of the show. I know that I'm probably forgetting somebody, and if I am, I apologize. I should have written this down. It's been such a crazy, long, and amazing ride, and I just appreciate everybody. We're going to keep doing it, so thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Thank you for your support. Join the Patreon. Subscribe wherever you're getting this, and we will be back next week with another episode of the Questions Hip Hop Podcast. Peace.